In Illinois, Irene and Franklin have been happily married for around 50 years. One night, Franklin notices she isn't eating much and worries about her health. Irene dodges his questions and asks to see the stars. The couple goes to their shed and move a bunch of stuff to reveal a hidden door. They go downstairs and walk through a tunnel to find another door, which takes them into a strange room. Mysterious lights glow around them as they're teleported away, causing Franklin to throw up. They arrive at an observation deck on another planet with a gorgeous view of the sky. Moments later, Franklin wants to go back, but Irene wants to stay longer. Franklin points out that since her fall the last year, Irene has wanted to come more often. They've been here 865 times since they found the door and nothing has ever happened, so Franklin is tired of it. He thinks it's time they tell someone else about the door, but Irene is convinced they must be the ones to solve the mystery. When the couple heads back, they don't notice their neighbor Byron watching them from afar. The next day, Franklin sees that Byron is mowing their lawn and he complains, seeing it as trespassing instead of helping. The couple leaves after some obligatory chit-chat and Byron rushes back to his house to look at Franklin's garden through the window, pointing out he lied about his planer being broken. Byron's wife Janine is tired of his obsession with the neighbors, but he insists they're hiding something in the shed. He also wants to run for councilman, which Janine is unsure about. Downtown, Franklin drops Irene at the hospital for some routine tests. The doctor asks Irene if she's eating, exercising, and doing physical therapy, but Irene avoids answering. This only makes the doctor more worried since Irene's symptoms are getting worse and suggests she should get in-home care because Franklin can't do this alone anymore. Meanwhile, Franklin goes for lunch with his granddaughter Denise. She's worried about them because a neighbor contacted her on social media to tell her that the couple goes out for strolls in the middle of the night. She thinks they should move out of that old house, but Franklin refuses. After the tests are over, Irene visits the care home. She catches up with the nurse Chandra and visits an old friend who has severe memory problems. Irene uses the chance to tell her about the teleporter, which her friend forgets in seconds. Franklin arrives home in the evening and realizes he forgot to pick up Irene, so he drives back and finds her waiting outside alone. On their way home, the truck runs out of gas because Franklin also forgot to fill up the tank. Since the house is empty, Byron takes the chance to enter the shed to investigate. He accidentally drops his phone on some light bulbs when he gets a text from Janine and has no choice but to leave. Later that evening, Irene tells Franklin that after she dies, he should sell the house and keep on living. After Franklin falls asleep, Irene writes a note apologizing for what she's about to do. She explains she's done waiting and that she must make her own choice while she still can. Then she takes the tunnel to the observation deck and gets ready to open the last door, determined to go outside. But at the moment, a person appears behind her wheezing and asking for help. In the morning, Franklin finds Irene crawling on the garden. She tells him about the mysterious person, so Franklin grabs a hammer and goes downstairs, only to find the man in the middle of the tunnel. When he tries moving him, Franklin finds blood on his hand. The man is taken to the living room, but the couple can't find any wounds. Franklin is convinced the guy is just a junkie that got lost and doesn't believe Irene when she says she found him in the observation deck, so he calls the police. Irene panics and convinces the stranger is part of the mystery, so they hide him upstairs. By the time Officer Thomas arrives, Franklin tells him the intruder ran away. Thomas still wants to take a look just in case, so Irene talks to him in private. She tells him that Franklin hasn't been mentally well and lately he's been seeing things, so Thomas leaves. Meanwhile in Argentina, Tony finishes having dinner with her mother Estella and pretends she's going to bed, but in reality she's sneaking out through the window to meet with a classmate. She shows him her house, but he insists on entering the chapel next to it. Tony sits next to the boy and tries to kiss him, but he pulls back and admits he's only here because of a dare. Everyone thinks Tony's grandfather was part of a cult and her house is supposedly haunted. At that moment, Estella finds them and kicks them both out. Then she opens a secret door on the wall and goes into a corridor that takes her to a teleporter like Franklin's. She pulls out a tile and checks on a strange glowing object. The next day, Estella can't find Tony anywhere and goes out in her truck to find her trying to run away from home. Estella brings her back and they have breakfast at a cafe, where Tony says she's tired of not making friends. Estella agrees it's hard to live in the middle of nowhere, but it's the family duty to guard the chapel and that duty will be passed to Tony when she grows up. The conversation is interrupted when Estella's phone alerts her of an intruder in the house. In the chapel, the secret door has been opened. Moments later, Estella comes back and gets her gun ready to find the intruder, but it's her friend Cornelia saying things in Latin and asking if she's training Tony. Back to Franklin and Irene, they check the stranger's possessions and find a book, a weird tablet, and some gold coins. Suddenly they hear a noise and discover the man is trying to leave the bed, but they push him back when they realize he has a fever. Irene is convinced that this is similar to a virus she had in the past, but they don't have the right medicine anymore, so Franklin leaves for the pharmacy. When he gets there, the clerk calls the doctor to get authorization first. The doctor asks to talk to Franklin, and he receives the bad news about his wife. On his way out, he's approached by Byron, who wants support for his campaign. Franklin says he doesn't like him and leaves, so Byron forges his signature. Later, Janine tells Byron that she saw the police visiting their neighbors. At home, Irene finds a picture inside the book showing the man with a baby and the name Gabriel underneath. She hears the guy coughing nonstop, so she makes a special brew for him and reads the book to him. Eventually the stranger wakes up and introduces himself as Jude. He doesn't know where he's from, he only remembers some cold mountains and rain. Somehow he fell and everything went black, then someone was carrying him. When Franklin comes back, he confronts Irene about her health. To calm him down, she eats more and promises to do everything the doctor says as long as Franklin supports her search for answers. They feed Jude and lock his room before going to bed. In the middle of the night, Jude picks the lock to escape and steals a knife from the kitchen. He sneaks into the bathroom, where there he removes a small glowing object from his leg, which he then destroys. After throwing it into the sink, he leaves the house. The next morning Cornelius insists that Tony needs something called Perdisco because she's next in line, but Estella disagrees. Then Cornelius gives Estella a special assignment, explaining she must find the son of someone important they know. She must also bring Tony along if she doesn't want Cornelius to take her away. After Cornelius leaves, Tony asks what a Perdisco is, so Estella tells her it's a rite of passage and asks to pack a bag because they're going on a trip. Then they enter the secret corridor in the church and using a hidden panel, Estella chooses their destination. They get in the teleporter and after just a few seconds, they come out to find themselves in the USA. Back to Franklin, he takes the mysterious coins to a pawn shop. The trader says they're Spanish doubloons from the 1700s but he can't tell where they were minted. At home, the lights are mysteriously flickering. When the couple checks on Jude, he's still in his room. They take him to have breakfast and he ends up puking in the car. After taking a bath, Jude grabs the clothes Irene left him. Touching them makes him remember being chased and attacked by another man. Afterward Jude goes to town with Franklin to supposedly do some errands. However, Franklin stops the car at the bus station and offers Jude $5,000 to leave. When Jude is about to board the bus, Franklin has second thoughts and makes him return. At home Irene looks around Jude's room and finds a jar with a strange glowing sphere. She puts the orb on a table and it immediately disappears, leaving only the things that were on top of it. At that moment Denise arrives for a visit and Irene rushes to hide the sphere. Denise finds the book with the picture inside so Irene pretends she bought the book used and the picture was already there. Then the guys come back so Irene tells Denise that Jude is their caretaker. Denise is still suspicious and after dinner, instead of going home she stays with a friend in town. Meanwhile Irene tells Jude about her son, who self-deleted when Denise was only 5. In return Jude explains the man on the picture is his father Gabriel, who left him when he was young. Jude thinks he was sent here to find him, and Irene agrees to help him. In the bathroom, Franklin finds the bloodied knife. When he turns on the sink tap, he notices the fragments of the strange trinket resurfacing, but before he can take a closer look the water takes them away. At the park, Byron is hanging up more signs for his campaign when he gets a call from the committee. They've discovered that he forged some signatures, so they force him to quit the campaign or he'll face legal consequences. That night, he decides to get into Franklin's shed again and this time he finds the secret door, so he goes into the corridor and discovers the teleporter too. In the morning Jude takes the jar with the glowing sphere and buries it in the garden. At that moment he's found by Byron, who asks too many questions. Jude says he's just a caretaker and leaves. Later after Jude has some coffee, Franklin steals the mug and takes it to Thomas, asking him to check for fingerprints while explaining what he saw in the bathroom. However, Thomas says that the story sounds crazy and thinks Irene was right when she said Franklin isn't mentally well. At the same time Jude and Irene go to the library and ask for helping to find the man on the photo. The librarian gets a match online from a newspaper. It turns out Jude's father was arrested many years ago and he also had amnesia. When the couple gets home, Franklin calls Irene out for the lie she told Thomas and reminds her that Jude isn't a replacement for their dead son. Irene doesn't listen so a furious Franklin goes for a ride to clear his mind and sees Byron burning all his campaign signs. Meanwhile Tony and Estella meet their contact Nick, who takes them inside an old warehouse where a machine calculates a few numbers to narrow down their search area. However, it's still a big zone to find one person, so Nick will have to go with them. By using his equipped van, they can narrow the signal even further. The trio leaves together and during the ride, Tony discovers a chest with guns. At the care home, Chandra is fired because she's been caught stealing from the patients. She decides to visit Irene and is disappointed to hear Jude is already their caretaker, but she leaves her business card anyway. Before leaving, she pretends to go to the bathroom and looks around for something to steal. Sometime later Irene asks Jude to pick up the ringing phone because she's showering. It's the clerk from the pawn shop, who found a buyer for the coins. Jude pretends to be Franklin's son and gets the buyer's number. Then Jude calls the number and asks for Gabriel, but the man says he's mistaken. He also says a few words in Latin that match what Cornelius told Estella. Getting scared, Jude hangs up and tells Irene the call was a telemarketer. Before going to bed, Irene gives Jude some money for all the work he's been doing around the house. Afterward Jude realizes his tablet is missing and suspects Chandra. He grabs her business card to go looking for her, but he gets lost and enters a bar to ask for directions. Denise is in the same bar with her friend, so they end up hanging out with Jude. He's having so much fun that he agrees to get on the stage for karaoke, only to sing something slow in Latin. Everyone stares at him as if he was a weirdo, so when Denise is distracted, Jude leaves the bar. In the pool hall, Franklin is playing alone until Byron arrives and accuses him of calling the authorities over the signature, but Franklin swears he didn't. The men end up playing pool together and bonding over their wives. Franklin isn't sure if Irene loves him anymore, and Byron explains Janine was a widow when he met her, so to this day he feels like a consolation prize. They get too drunk and Byron confesses he saw the secret room in the shed, so Franklin agrees to show him more. In the middle of the night, Irene wakes up and realizes Jude and Franklin haven't come back yet, so she goes out on her old car to look for them. Shortly after she leaves, Byron and Franklin arrive and immediately enter the teleporter. However, nothing happens and now Byron thinks this place was a naughty dungeon all along. Back to Jude, he's walking down the road and gets scared when he sees a police car, so he tries to run. The cop goes after him and grabs him, which makes Jude think of his attacker. It's revealed he had stabbed the man multiple times, explaining the blood on his clothes. The officer arrests Jude at the same time Irene drives by that area. At the police station, Irene is disappointed by Jude running away and demands the truth. Jude explains all his life he was kept in an isolated compound in the middle of nowhere to protect the mysterious doorway. There are many of them and nobody knows who built them or why, but they're very old. The planet Irene sees, it's just a wasteland where things go to die. The guy Jude killed had been a guard who tried to stop him from escaping, and if the members of his organization find him, they'll kill him too. Jude thinks Gabriel went through the door and that's why he used it for his search. Then Irene sweet talks the officer into letting Jude go. In the meantime, Estella's group makes it to a transmission tower and Nick starts climbing it to hack it. Tony tries taking a picture and Estella forbids her from posting anything on social media. As Nick gets a ping from the tower, a utility worker arrives, so Estella has to quickly knock him out and lock him up in his van. Afterward, the trio leaves while Nick announces they're going to Illinois. A few hours later, Estella asks Nick to take a different road and to stop near the forest. She walks among the trees, remembering coming here with her father when she was young for a mission. Estella was supposed to stay in the car with the radar, but she followed him and watched him fight with a teenage girl that didn't want to go with him. The girl stabbed him and ran away, so the man shot his gun to stop her. Then Estella helped her father throw the body in the car into a lake. That day he taught her this was their duty. In the van, Nick teaches Tony how to shoot a gun and accidentally says he knew her dad, who Tony knows nothing about. The next day, Franklin takes Irene to the hospital and the doctor is happy to see she's doing much better. At the same time, Denise visits the house again and asks Jude about the picture in the book. Jude says his family was in a cult and she thinks it's just a joke. When the couple comes back, Franklin grabs an old camera and gives it to Byron, telling him to get the photos developed to see the truth. Later, Irene visits Chandra and keeps her distracted while Jude breaks in to retrieve his tablet. However, he also finds a necklace with the same object he used to have in his leg, so he rushes to confront Chandra. An argument ensues and Jude reveals Chandra has lots of stuff she stole from her patients. Irene promises to keep the secret if she tells them where she got the necklace. After they leave, Jude explains that the tablet is a key and that the little capsules are trackers, that's why he removed his. He thinks the necklace used to belong to his father. Meanwhile, Byron gets the photos developed and sees Irene and Franklin in the observation deck. He rushes home to search for information online and comes across thousands of conspiracy theories. Eventually he finds one called the Impossible Door, which is art by an Argentine missionary from 1723. When Franklin comes home, he finds the shed and the secret door open. It turns out Byron is working on the mysterious doorway, but he hasn't been able to make it work. Franklin notices bloody fingerprints by the side of the doorway and he pulls the slate, revealing a control panel. Unlike Estella's, it's missing its sphere and Franklin suspects Jude. On his way home, Byron notices some leaves floating and begins digging on that spot to find the jar with the missing orb. That night, when Franklin takes out the trash, he finds Irene's letter and is devastated to read its content. He goes back into the house and tells Jude they used to be fine, but now he's causing lots of pain. Jude asks him if he's sure, causing Franklin to leave and spend the night at Byron's. Meanwhile, Tony's group makes it to Illinois and stays in a motel for the night. When Estella goes to the vending machine, she hears weird noises coming from Nick's room and discovers he's doing tricks with one of the orbs to impress a night worker. Estella pays the woman to make her leave and scolds Nick for doing dangerous things, reminding his brother died because he misbehaved. Nick says Estella isn't much better since she's keeping Tony in the dark about everything. The next morning during breakfast, Nick tells Tony that Estella used to be wild as a teenager and calls her out for not talking about his brother. When he tries to point out Tony looks like his brother, Estella smashes his face on the table. Then she drags Tony to the van and they leave without Nick. During the ride, Estella explains the person they're looking for is part of their organization and they must stop him before he puts people in danger. Tony agrees to use Nick's machine to figure out where to go next. Back to Jude, he and Dennis visit the necklace's previous owner that Chandra told them about. They meet with a man who explains the necklace used to belong to his father. He was a truck driver and one day he picked up a hitchhiker who appeared to be running from something. His suspicions were proven right when he realized the truck was being followed, so the hitchhiker took a knife from the glove box and removed the tracker from his ankle. Then he gave it to the driver and ran away. In the meantime, Byron shows Franklin the orb, but he isn't interested and tells Byron to try it alone. Franklin then goes home and confronts Irene about the letter. She tries to apologize, saying she made a mistake, but Franklin believes something is seriously wrong with their marriage and feels he isn't enough for her to want to stay. In the shed, Byron puts the sphere in the control panel, but nothing happens. At the police station, Thomas learns that Jude was arrested the other night and begins having second thoughts about the mug. Moments later, he visits Irene and shows her all the things he found about Jude, thanks to the fingerprints. There's a history of violent incidents and psychiatric holds, so Thomas wants to take Jude into custody. To protect him, Irene pretends she's already fired him for getting drunk. Moments later, Denise and Jude come back with information of where his father had been seen a few years ago. Jude wants to follow his dad's trail and Irene and Denise agree to go with him, but Franklin stays. In private, Irene shows Thomas' report to Jude, who says it was all made up by his organization so the police would capture him. After the group leaves, Franklin gets a call from the potential doubloon buyer and learns about Jude's lie. The buyer explains they're very rare and wants to know where he found them, but Franklin gets nervous and hangs up. At that moment, Byron calls him to the shed and reveals he connected a generator to the teleporter. He guessed the orb was the machine's charger and it lost power when it was removed, so now he wants to recharge it. As soon as they plug it in, the entire tunnel starts shaking and the orb sends out a strong shockwave that makes lights in the neighborhood flicker, triggers all cars' alarms, makes dogs bark, and even kills birds. In the van, Nick's machine short circuits and almost makes Estella crash. She and Tony notice they've arrived at a neighborhood with no power. Once the orb stops, Franklin and Byron use the teleporter. Byron throws up before stepping into the observation deck, amazed by the beauty of the planet. Franklin admits he was never brave enough to go outside, but now he's finally ready, and he reveals he's been working on spacesuits for years. They need to be finished and Byron agrees to help, so he goes shopping for diving equipment. He also stops by his house to get some tools and has to lie to Janine about his project. She gets frustrated because he's never home lately and starts complaining about the shame he brought to the family with that forged signature. This makes him realize it was her who reported him to the council. In the park, Estella is hanging missing signs with Jude's face. She's found by Thomas, who points out the van is parked on the wrong spot and is suspicious of two foreigners vacationing in their little town. Suddenly Tony starts yelling random things in Spanish and Estella fights with her on purpose. Since Thomas doesn't understand what they're saying, he gets uncomfortable and leaves. Later at a hotel, Tony checks social media and finds a video of Jude at the karaoke bar, but Estella announces she'll investigate this alone. After she leaves, Tony calls Nick for help. Estella makes it to the bar and an employee gives her Chandra's business card, which Jude accidentally left behind. Next she visits Chandra, who refuses to talk unless she gets paid. Since she has no money, Estella returns to the hotel and finds Cornelius waiting for an update. Later that day, Cornelius and the girls go to see Chandra again. He tries to pay her with doubloons, but Chandra doesn't believe it's real gold and demands cash. Cornelius responds by hurting her until she gives them Jude's location. Then he kills her and burns down her body in her car. Meanwhile, Irene, Jude, and Denise arrive at the place where the truck diver supposedly dropped Gabriel. They meet Hannah, who explains she used to date Gabriel but he left 15 years ago without a warning. When she hears for how long the group had been driving, she invites them to stay the night. Irene calls home but Franklin won't answer, so she leaves a message. She also keeps hearing weird noises around the house and Hannah swears it's just the wind. However, while the others are distracted, Hannah sneaks into a hidden room where Paul is watching everyone with hidden cameras. He tracked Irene's call and confirms it's the same number as the guy with the coins, meaning Paul was the mysterious buyer. Afterward, Hannah lets Jude sleep in Gabriel's room and he's surprised to find the same book he was reading. There are many notes on the margins and a piece of paper with some runes. In the other room, Irene apologizes to Denise for the death of her father, blaming herself for it. A flashback reveals that Irene's son had been deeply depressed, but Irene pushed him to take care of his family. That was the final push that made him end things. In the morning, the trio leaves and Paul follows them in his car. In the meantime, Byron and Franklin finally finish the spacesuits and go to the observation deck. However, Franklin decides not to go out because he wants to share the moment with Irene. Byron goes out alone and describes on the radio how amazing it feels. Franklin reminds him not to go too far, but Byron claims he can see some furniture and disappears around the corner, losing all communication and causing Franklin to assume the worst. When the family comes back, he tells them everything is fine, but it's clear he's drowning in guilt. Jude goes to his room and reveals he stole the book from Hannah's house. Using its notes and the tablet, he starts translating the message. Meanwhile, Irene takes Denise to the teleporter, explaining she found it after her son died, so she's always thought they were connected. She tells her about the other planet, how it helped her deal with her grief, and how she found Jude here. Denise isn't happy to learn they've been lying so much to her and leaves. The next day, Jude looks for the orb and only finds the hole in the ground. Franklin returns to the observatory deck, but Byron still won't answer. On his way back, Janine comes by to ask if he's seen her husband and Franklin pretends he knows nothing. Then Jude confronts Irene and Franklin about the orb, warning them that it's dangerous. He announces he'll be leaving soon to follow the clues about his father, and Franklin asks him about the planet. Jude confirms it's an empty wasteland. Meanwhile, Cornelius stops the van to go relieve himself and finds the dead birds in the area. In the van, Estella explains to Tony that she'll have to kill Jude when she finds him. If she doesn't, the organization will take Tony away. Their conversation is interrupted by Cornelius, who tells them about the birds as he sees Jude leave in a car. Estella will follow him in the van while Cornelius and Tony spy on the family. While they watch the house from the woods, Cornelius tells Tony that Nick's brother is her father and he can introduce him to her after this is over. Then Tony walks toward the house and Franklin comes out to meet her, only for Cornelius to appear behind him with a gun. Back to Jude, he meets with Denise and tries to convince her he never lied to her. Suddenly Estella shows up and opens fire, so the duo hides behind a car. Jude tells Denise to return to her grandparents' house before he starts running into the woods so Estella will follow him. Denise drives back to Franklin's home and finds her grandparents being held hostage by Cornelius. He captures her too and threatens to kill her until Irene finally tells him that the teleporter is in the shed. Cornelius gives the gun to Tony and tells her to keep the family inside while he goes searching for the special door. As soon as he's gone, Irene tries to make Tony see reason. After some hesitation, Tony grabs a knife to free them, but she's stopped by a returning Cornelius. While they argue over what is right to do for the greater good, Denise tries using her keys to cut Franklin's bindings. Then Cornelius calls Estella and shares a new plan. She yells into the woods that they've captured Denise and her family, so if Jude wants to save them he must come out. Jude surrenders, and while Estella drags him into the van, he says he remembers her from his childhood. He saw her kneeling in front of his mother during a special ceremony. When they arrive at the house, Cornelius hits Jude with the gun and says she sent him. Jude doesn't believe him, so Cornelius kicks him and blames him for putting the family in danger. It's time for Estella to kill him, but she can't bring herself to do it, so Cornelius says he will. At that moment Franklin tackles him, only for Cornelius to easily overpower him and throw him off. Next, Cornelius tries to kill Estella for her betrayal, however Jude tackles him too. This leaves an opening for Franklin to knock him down with Irene's cane. Estella gets the gun and announces there won't be any more killing before tasing Cornelius unconscious. Afterward, a gagged and bound Cornelius is thrown in the back of the van and Estella says she and Tony will travel far away. She isn't worried about anyone following her because Cornelius is her bargaining chip now. Moments later on the road, a car hits the van from behind and Estella tries going faster, but the car moves to hit the van on the side until it goes off the road. It rolls down a hill for a while until finally lands at the bottom. A bunch of men immediately surround it and arrest the women while Hannah and Paul say hello to Cornelius. In the house, Denise tells Jude she'll go with him. They enter the shed and Jude puts his tablet on the control panel, revealing it's a keyboard. Now they can choose where to go, so he enters the address he saw on the paper from the book, but Jude also points out the location resets after every trip. After some emotional goodbyes, the duo disappears in the teleporter and comes out in a fancy building in Bangkok. Back to Franklin, he finally tells Irene about Byron and the suits. He thinks Janine deserves closure, so he'll go looking for Byron. Irene shows her support and a few words of love before letting him go. Once outside, Franklin is surprised to find their coffee table. As he keeps going, he loses the radio connection. Eventually Franklin finds a body with a knife in the chest, unaware it's the guy Jude killed. Suddenly he notices the suit is running out of air and it's very hard to breathe. The radio works for a second and he manages to report to Irene before collapsing. He thinks his time is over, but at that moment Irene shows up and removes his helmet. It turns out the air here is human friendly and there's even an actually city nearby. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.